Hey there, welcome to part two. So, we just got done talking about how everything is connected through numbers, how everything in the human body relates to even the days of the week. We're living in an internal, the sine wave or the realm of duality where we experience the various shifts in consciousness and on a daily level. So, now we'll talk about how that relates to the 12 systems and how not only seven, because we hear seven in all the stories, seven planets, 7 days of the week, even the Snow White and the seven dwarfs, um, or the seven visible planets, the seven notes. And when we talk about the seven notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da, each one corresponds to a different plane of existence here. So you have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da. So right now you could be living at a very low spectrum of consciousness or a very low tone, and by increasing your tone, you can reach for higher knowledge. And you know, Samael Weor and Crum Heller, great Gnostic, great esoteric, said the best way, one of the best ways to attain these higher understandings, because with the more understanding you have, the less likely you are to thwart the path. So mantra vocalization and hitting high tones like doing E or O or even Om, using sound, because sound is even more subtle than breath. Yes, we have to focus on the breath and the awareness, but sound is on a whole other dynamic, and it connects to the higher layers of our being, especially if you can kind of merge with that sound while being conscious of it. And also understanding this, how 12 relates to your life and how it can give more meaning and purpose. Understanding that there's the 12 chromatic scale, there's 12 notes also. There's a scale with 12 notes. There's 12 systems in the body: the skeletal, the digestive, the reproductive system, the nervous system, the skin organ, the digestive system. If I already mentioned that, there's 12 different systems. If you look up on Google, type in the 12 systems of the body, you'll see that there's 12. And then there's 12 signs of the zodiac. So the ancients were correct to label each one of these 12 systems with a particular zodiac, even down to the shape. Like Gemini rules the arms. Well, hey, Gemini rules the lungs, which are connected to arms. Aries rules the head, the cerebrum. And up in the cerebrum, it actually looks like a lamb or a ram. And you have Pisces at the feet, the two fish, and each one relates to, there's the bone, the skeletal system, the digestive system, and so on. And in the Bible, you hear a lot of the 12 loaves or the 12 disciples and the 12 labors. So we're like in some type of geometric realm where we're constantly being influxed by 7 and 12, 7 and 12. And that's why we went through the 12 steps of the alchemical process. And we go through the 7 stages of self-actualization, self-realization. And throughout our life, we have the assistance of various angles or angels of light, which are the beings or intelligent non-corporeal beings, which means non-physical. So they have ascended past the realm of physical, or now in the realm of the non-flesh. And these beings are able to communicate with us through our energy and give us ideas and perceptions and ideals and higher ways of seeing it, as long as our vibration internally is matching those higher beings. Now, if we're on a lower level, we're at risk of being thwarted by lower beings. And that's why the whole Bible and all the stories of religion are to save us from the physical realm, because the physical realm is where the soul can get basically drowned in its own confusion, drowned in its own lost temptations, and lost in the woods of life, only to be called back by the Krishna, the Christ, or the Christos, which is the inner sun. So here we're getting into more correspondences of as within, so without. Because everything you see without, whether it be the sun or the moon or the sky or earth or anything physical, is also within yourself, because you came from the universe and the universe came from God. So if God created the universe created man, and all the 12 zodiac and all the sky and all the heavens and all the visible notes and colors and glands are all within the human body, then that makes you a child of this organism or this program. So once you pass and understand that you're here to do things very similar to nature, In the same way that the sun is vaporizing the water becomes the mist becomes the clouds, it's rising and purifying. So in the same way, the spiritual sun within is rising your internal soul, which has always been related to water. And once the soul's been evaporated up into the high heavens, it creates its form. It maintains a form. You know, you're not just on some endless process of never-ending reincarnation or a never-ending hell or nirvana or oblivion. A lot of Western esotericists love to teach the oblivion. You're going to nothingness. You don't have any. No. You came here to individualize yourself. You're in the womb just like you have a mom and a dad, and they love you. Same way in the spirit realm. There's spiritual beings that actually take note and account for lower realms and are trying to figure out what's going on. So I definitely consider looking more into it and broadening your studies to Thomas H. Burgoyne, Light of Egypt, Western Hermeticists, as well as true Eastern teachings. You know, don't just get for one, or don't just be a non-dualist or Veda Vedanta New Age that the universe is God, whatever. And don't get caught up in the crowd of religious fanaticism, or constantly trying to choose a religion constantly. Instead, choose the religion, the science of the soul, the internal potency, the Christ, the Krishna, the Christ is the Lamb. The Lamb is within you. Every year when the spring comes, and also on your own personal level, the Lamb of God comes to renew your soul, to come and knock at the door and say, hey, you know what? What is it that you need to do to understand better? What is it that you need to do to help better? You know, because we're just gardeners here in the garden of God. So we were just meant to be tenders of this garden, the keepers of the garden. And it's good to not go astray. And the universal deity is also placed, I like how, I don't know what to call them. I guess Ralph Smart calls them the inorganic ones. I don't know if you follow him. I agree with some of the things he says. And inorganic ones are created by beings that are essentially here to be the opposite side of the chessboard, basically, so that it creates attention. But a lot of these souls are departed souls that were once at higher stages of consciousness and chose to become individualized, independent, and submerge themselves in lower dimensions to the point where they've almost been fully cut off, and have started to wage war against the higher consciousness. So take that on for a ride for sure. There's a lot more that meets the eye to religion. You know, it's not just going to New Age or become an atheist or become a nihilist, or saying you only live once, or saying you're reincarnated. None of it's actually true. It's all lies. They've just kept the secret from us from all until now. So if you look, seek, and you shall find. Knock and the door will be opened, and see you in the next video. Good evening. Welcome to my channel. We're going to try to be doing, just simple syncretism, daily syncretism, to understand how the universal mind expands and how there's only one mind in the universe that permeates through all the individuated aspects, and how that one consciousness manifests as the 12 zodiac signs. And the 12 zodiac signs relate to the 12 systems of the body. And those 12 systems of the body are all linked to an intelligence outside, within on the internal planes, but also astrologically and astronomically, as above, so below. So we're talking about the 12 zodiac signs. Know that the light, that is the stillness, or the unified aspect, splits into two, and that two is the dyad, which gives us the sine wave, which is the sun's path on the ecliptic. And once it gives us that, it gives us a split between day and night, hot and cold. But between that split of two, there's 12, and within that 12 manifests symbolically as the 12 signs of the zodiac that were allotted that by the ancient seers, who prescribed over thousands of years of observation of understanding cycles of nature, understood that this eternal clock reflected the mind and will of the creator, or the consciousness beyond the universal womb, or the matrix, so to speak. That these 12 signs reflected the mind of deity, and in man, and so made the perfect man or woman, which would be the 12 systems of the body, or Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Now, the reason why there's been a huge split and division between religion and spirituality is because the organized religion, who has shunned all esoteric knowledge and ancient wisdom that unified all the separate schools of thought, which aren't really separate, but from appearance they are. They hid the fact that the Bible is founded on astrology and how astrology all works with archetypes and psychology and behavior patterns, as well as seasonal patterns, and how they reflect the mind of God, and how in the Bible it was even Job told, it was told to Job, explain, can you tell forth the Mazzaroth? Basically, Mazzaroth in Hebrew means circle of animals, and the circle of animals is the 12 signs of the zodiac on the Eclectic, and that it was also said to know your signs and seasons, and are you bound by the Pleiades? Are you able to tell forth the influences of the heavens? Basically, that is a type of language used in the Bible. What it condemned was, like, from a more standpoint of like fortune telling or like disaster, like basically just people that are charlatans who are not real gifted, have true gifts of astrology, and they're just using it to sideswipe or something like that, because it is a holy science, and the holy science is utilized within ourselves to basically temper the soul, temper the personality, because when we descend into matter, we come from the more subtle aspects. So we have the 12 zodiac signs, and when you flip it onto itself, you have the 4 quadrants. So the 4 quadrants are fire, gas, liquid, and solid. So you see the most subtle being light, gas, air, liquid, soul, solid, body, matter, because that is the lowest point of spirit is the physical realm. And that inertia is known as a death. So when that intelligence is entombed or within the womb of matter, it sets out on the journey to temper and perfect and develop each of these 12. These are the 12 zodiac, or the 12 stages of the alchemical process, or the 12 intelligences within yourself. So the initiate has to master from top to bottom, or bottom to top, all the signs of the zodiac within. So the true teaching is that you are all signs of the zodiac, but your sun sign is just your most temperamental sign, your natural sign that you're most prominent in. But you are a living being, always developing these 12 signs in any earth system or in any toroidal field. We know that the physical manifestation takes place on the middle plane of inertia, and that's the realm where all the physical entities manifest their consciousness and their individuality, all individually descending the 7 planets, or the 7 notes, coming from do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da, from the highest down to the lowest, as that gas and light and vapor solidify and becomes earth, or individual bodies. Now, the mysteries of Isis is that the human body, whether man or woman, is the universal uterus of the Divine Mother. Each body is a uterus that produces a soul, or a Holy Ghost, or an omnipotent presence of spirit. Once the physical body has done its cycle of necessity in the physical plane, it's able to transcend to those higher planes, just like earth and water is vaporized by the sun and transmuted into gas, which then produces lightning. So the crude vessel of earth and water are distilled and alchemicalized and internally vaporized until the soul is ready to manifest itself on the higher planes with the individual consciousness. So you are here to develop these 12 zodiacal intelligences, as well as the 7 internal planetary potencies, just in the same way that the sun goes through the 12 signs of the zodiac, coming up in spring at 6 a.m. where everything is beautiful and resurrected, to Cancer and Leo in the summer in the northern hemisphere where the sun is at its brightest, coming down into Libra, which relates to 6 p.m. or the sunset we have Set, Horus, and Set are always fighting. Then the sun, it goes down into the underworld and it resurrects. That resurrection is the whole mystery, because once the physical body has done its cycle of necessity, it is able to maintain its form and ability in the astral plane and be able to coexist with the internal beings that exist there before it reaches its point where it has to even tread onto higher planes of existence, higher realms, and experience higher velocities. Now, as I explained, each system contains the 12 zodiac. You can never escape the 12 zodiac. The symbols are universal. The potencies are always the same. And the human language symbols all come from higher planes of existence. All symbols, myths, truths, stories, all are the encapsulations of the highest truths that man has uncovered from his own self by exploring the nature of reality, which is a representation or physical manifestation of the presence of deity, which is the divine mother, divine father, combined into one, which produced the Christ. Now let's talk about the Christ. The Christ being symbolized by the sun, going through its 12 labors, or going through the 12 apostles, manifesting its dramas. Dramas because the sun is the personal being. The sun is the physical body of the spiritual potency of a personal intelligent being that transcends the limits of space and time, as well as the limitations of the realm of duality, or redshift, blue shift. Hence, that one thinking mind is beyond this physical realm, but also within it, in a continuous process of creation and spontaneous thought. That's why, Christ is within all our hearts. Krishna is within our hearts. Christ and Krishna exist as the super soul, which is the everywhere aspect that's omnipresent. And then it expresses itself as its individualized, localized aspect beyond the physical realm, and is the director or conductor, or basically the supreme ruler over the creation manifestation of all the forms on the physical realm. So this is just a quick crash course on syncretism, astrotheology, taught by the great Santos Bonacci, Bill Donahue, Thomas H. Burgoyne, Samael Weor, some of the gifted seers of the past. And we're just going to keep doing these little crash courses on esoteric science so that we can continue to gain a better understanding of the purpose of life in a world where nihilism runs amok, where everyone wants to, find a purpose in materialistic things, not understanding the physical realm is just a temporal realm of preparation. Some call it a probation, some call it a gestation period. But like I said, the mysteries of Isis is we are in the divine mother's womb, the universal matrix. And once the shell cracks, based on our faith and work, just like the Christ says, faith without works is dead. So you need both. You need faith and works. You need to understand higher realms, believe in it, have faith, not believe, but just have an inner knowing. To have faith means to place the probability of higher truths and higher functions of reality, and to know that their possibility is imminent based on the observation of your own self and your own being. And if you combine that with works and understanding that you're transmuting yourself every day, that every day you're experiencing this birth, life, death, and resurrection. Every year, every summer, every winter. Every winter the sun goes down into the tomb, only to be born of a stable of between Goat and Sagittarius, to climb the ladder, just like the Goat, up into Aries to resurrect. And every year we feel a sense of renewal. So that is a miniature cycle of a larger proponent that takes place on a yearly cycle. But not only a yearly cycle, it also takes place on a life cycle. So as you experience, being a child, adolescent, adult, old age, and death, so you're experiencing the 4 seasons. The internal aspects of your life are symbolic of the outer aspects of your life. And the sooner you realize that, the more you'll understand that you're part of the mind. There is only one mind, and that one mind permeates through all of us. And if we can spontaneously activate that well of creativity and spontaneous creation and to learn to function from the higher mind. The higher mind is the lamb. That's why it's always in the myths going for the golden fleece, or the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world. The lamb is the higher mind, or the cerebrum. The cerebrum is in the crown chakra, and the cerebrum has the ability to have the higher consciousness from the highest intelligent planes of existence manifest in a minute form in the physical body, allowing man to direct his thoughts upward towards higher, more transcendental things. So that's what it says. When you activate your lamp, or your inner lamb, then you're able to see and pierce through reality and extract the information from the symbols and all the manifested aspects of creation that continually take place. Today we are going to be talking about some new information. It's not necessarily new, but it is from the Hermetic school of Thomas H. Burgoyne, C.C. Zane, as well as Illuminated Brahmanism. It is the Hermetic philosophy of how the soul is created and differentiated from the whole, and how the soul goes through a process of involution down through some of the highest states of being, down to the lowest, being a mineral, goes down up from the mineral to the plant, to the animal kingdom, and then taking a final stop at the human kingdom, in which this life prepares us for the next dimension. So let's get into this information. So, one thing, what is the soul? So the soul is a individual, eternal, immortal unit of consciousness, of being, that has eternal progression, which means that once it's created, its destiny is eternal progression, and it's immortal. So the soul is not it's not allowed to stagnate. There's been a misinterpretation of the teachings of, let's say, reincarnation, or exactly how many human lives that you receive. We know that in the Vedas and the Vaishnava tradition, and esoteric Vaishnavism, we understand that there's higher spiritual, they call them higher spiritual planets. Once you die from the physical realm, you would manifest on the spiritual planet that you would most be akin to, due to the law of affinity, or the law of attraction, or inner outer. You go to where you are, whether that be a low astral hell, or an astral slum, or a lower material planet that's even more dense than here. Some say this is the densest you can go in the spectrum. However, there's some say that there are more physical realms below. But even in the astral realms, there are different variations of the level of consciousness and being, and how you're able to function there. So the idea is that in the beginning, before the individuation of the soul, before the soul took itself out, or was taken out of the whole and made an individual unit, unlike where some say that the entire whole is just fragmented itself and lost itself in a Maya illusion, and as each individual unit wakes up, then the whole is recovered. But in this situation, we're coming at it that in the beginning, the positive, negative, wisdom, love. In the Hermetic tradition, the masculine force is the wisdom, and the feminine force is love. The more personal aspect, the creator, and the more logical, superpersonal aspect. Together, it forms super interpersonal. So a lot of people say that, God or the creator is just energy, or an impersonal force. Now, it does have impersonal functions and impersonal machine-like type of mechanical aspects of itself, but the cause behind it, or the knower of the field, is always personal. Hence, we're personal. Personal cannot come from something impersonal. So we have the father-mother unit as one. This is before the soul's individuated. And then it splits from within itself. It comes from its inner potency, is Radha, the feminine aspect, Purusha, Prakriti, Krishna, Radha, the whole, which is one. You could say it's it's within itself. It's a very sexual in nature, just as above, so below, just like humans. There's this positive and negative polarity here that splits into positive feminine, and then when it comes together, it creates individual soul. You could say the first individual soul in Western esotericism would be akin to Adam or the Christ, but essentially, on a more individual microcosmic level, as we all have our individual spiritual family tree, so to say, going on, we also, this is us. This is our individual soul and how it splits from the whole. And this is still, it's in and of itself, its own individual selves. There's still the father wisdom, the mother love of the universe, and that womb of creation, that matrix, creates a gestation or fermentation place for souls. But let's, in the physical realm, we haven't gotten to the physical realm yet. So on the way down, we become also like God. God creates us in his image, her image, he, her. Jehovah Elohim. Elohim is plural for gods and goddesses. In the sense we're talking about positive and negative, intelligent, creative, archetypal forces. So once you come out of this, then Adam is split. Eve is split from Adam's rib. Adam takes a rib out. What is that saying? That as above, so below. So in the same way, the wisdom, love, masculine, feminine, God split itself and came together. So too, you came out in one unit, or split into Adam and Eve. And in the Egyptian rituals, in ancient Egyptian times, these would be the candidates. Adam and Eve are cast out of the garden. What does that mean? They're cast down the 7 planets, and they go down to the 7 chambers, from the angelic to the archetypal to the mental, all the way down the astral steps. As we come down the astral steps for the 7th dimension, all the way down to the first, entering the physical realm, losing, and there's a split. We are then split from our divine counterpart, the Adam and Eve. So this is before physical creation. Once you're split, then they're sent down. So essentially, you were masculine before you incarnated as a male, and you were feminine before you incarnated as a female. If your outer appearance in the physical realm, if your polarity, your outer appearance is a manifestation of your inner polarity. So essentially, in the school of Thomas H. Burgoyne and the Hermetic teachings, ancient Christianity teachings, and in this school of thought, the soul has a gender before physical incarnation. What happens then? The souls go down to the lowest point, going down through the kingdoms, the salamanders, the sylphs, the Undines, the water, finally the gnomes, entering mineral, plant, animal, and then finally human. Once in human incarnation, these two are normally separated and are on a mission, a polarity to these two. The journey of life is to allow the polarities to develop and to maximize the properties, so that once these come together, this is termed the soulmates, they come together on the earth plane. However, it has been said, especially in the age of forgetfulness, that many people don't necessarily meet on the physical realm and end up meeting in one of these 7 astral kingdoms. I wouldn't call them kingdoms, more as these are all planes of existence. So when you exit the physical realm, usually people leave in 2s, just like the operas or the ancient Orphic, or I can't remember which mysteries, but in one of the mysteries you leave in 2s, the swans, the mysteries of the Adam and Eve. You left the Garden of Eden together, were cast out, were guarded by the cherubim of fire, and were told, to come back, you must, you have to plow the field, work it from the sweat of your brow. It's talking about the soul coming down into this physical realm, which is a death to the soul. You come down all from the highest heavens all the way down to a rock, and then up into human. And you only live one life here, regardless if it's good or bad. You're not going to heaven or hell, or necessarily a oblivion. A lot of the Eastern teachings, or even Western esoteric science, has now taught us that the highest state of consciousness is spiritual oblivion. But even Helena Blavatsky first was quoted to promote a doctrine of non-reincarnation, and that the soul only lived once on the physical plane as a human to prepare it for these astral realms. Now, these various astral realms, you are various on depending on your merit, depending on your character. We're going to be going into that extensively in the next videos. This is just a introduction into some of this new information that's already been publicly it's already been out in the open. It's nothing's new under the sun. Then it's just a different idea is that you experience your consequences, your karma, or your individual need to overcome certain aspects of yourself. They're dealt with in these astral planes. You no longer have access to the physical realm once the physical body died, because the physical body is the crucifixion of the soul and the four elements, and the cross of the T of the body. Once crucified, has to enter these astral realms. Once here in the seventh astral realm, you have to die in all these astral realms. There is death, there is life, there's activities, there's jobs, there's clothes, there's all different kinds. It's just in the same way that you have dreams where there's buildings and clothes and things to learn and activities. In the same way, that's where you go when you die, except you won't ever return to a physical body. So this physical world was preparing you to enter these higher spheres. Now, these are not all positive. There's still, you could be stuck in paranoia or all kinds of mental or psychological or emotional, spiritual disorders, and experience discord and disharmony in any of these planes until you finally die in the seventh plane, ascending the seven rings of the cycle of necessity, because this is all the cycle of necessity. Cycle of necessity starting at Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, going all the way down into physical incarnation at Libra when the sun sets. This is September when the fall happens, or 6 p.m. when the sun sets. You're going down into the tomb, down into the mysteries. It's the born in the spirit realm in these months, spring and summer, Aries to Virgo. And then these are the physical incarnation when things are getting dark, when the sun is setting. The sun is entombing itself in physical matter, the four elements, to triumph, to reconcile the difference between these polarities, in which return to whence it came, because it's eternal, immortal, progressive, individual. You don't go into the cosmic goo, you don't go into oblivion, you don't reincarnate. You're going to incarnate, or you could call it reincarnation, because your life is going to be very similar here as it is here in the physical realm. If you don't get past astral realm 2, 1, 2, or 3, a lot of this is real similar, doing a lot of activities. There's such thing as earthbound souls, where you disincarnate from the physical body and you're left wandering around the subterranean astral realms, trying to experience vicariously through others the vices that you are still attached to. So this is why you have to prepare in this life for these subtle realms where you can't even eat meat up. You can't eat meat. You can't do lustful activities. You can't harm others. So the more you purify your life here and prepare and let go to understand the cycle of necessities, to always progressively let go, so that when these astral planes, you're able to understand the conception of rising up the seven rings. I mean, in the Hermetic traditions and esoteric science, we always know that we're coming down the seven rings and going up the seven rings. You know, they have us thinking that we're going to constantly just be focusing on the physical realm for eternity, eternally reincarnating 108 times, or you're reincarnating through your grandchild, or you're going to be going to hell, or you're going to merge with the infinite consciousness and lose your individuality, or teachings of no self. And the thing is that is actually retarding your progress, to know that you're going to have to transmute the lower gross into the higher, because these astral realms are higher velocities of life. There's still houses, there's still jobs, there's still relatives, there's still people, there's still necessities. It's just certain things in this realm, as we go in the physical realm, has 64 laws. Next plane existence 48, next 36, 24, 12, 6, and 0. And that has nothing to do with laws of morality. We're talking about laws of fixations, laws of how this realm works. For example, in these realms, teleportation and aerial travel is number one, but the most common thing is walking. And then in the physical realm, same here. We have airplanes, buses, trains, but we end up walking around anyway. And like I said, a lot of this information can be found Illuminated Brahmanism, Thomas H. Burgoyne, Light of Egypt 1 and 2, C.C. Zane, my website, innermysteries.org. Check out the new book, Divine Mysteries of Existence, link in the description. And also, they were going to be going extensively into this. Check out the Academy, Santos Academy, and find out more about the soul's origins and see how we actually have spiritual parents and a soul origin, and that how we actually appear in these astral plane, this plane of existence in the astral plane, right after the physical death. It is actually a spontaneous transfer from the physical realm to the astral realm. And if you haven't built your spiritual body, then you have to build the spiritual body in the astral plane. The thing is a lot of functions, very important aspects of life happen in the physical realm, and it's easier to advance here. You have a lot of time and focus and consecrated energies to focus on the development. So a lot of people miss out on the opportunity of the physical realm. That's why understanding the mysteries and living life in service to Creator, service to humanity, love your neighbor, love God more than love God just as you love yourself, love your neighbor. These teachings help you understand how, if you follow the teachings of Christ or Krishna or the higher consciousness through the prophets and messengers or the seers, the sages, they're all helping you prepare for this plane of existence. And if you read the books that I mentioned, it will explain how and why this was misinterpreted and how we can understand things from another perspective. And how even if the other schools of thought were teaching maybe something that was misinterpreted, such as how many times reincarnation is necessary, or if reincarnation is necessary, or where the origin of the soul, or where you're going, or the gender of the soul, it was only due to a misinterpretation. It was only due to some of it wasn't out of spite or on purpose. A lot of it was just kind of lost in the ages, lost in a lot of the times the priestcraft did use a lot of this to like keep people enslaved, like on the western side of the Christianity, trying to make you feel like you're going to either go to heaven or hell. Well, these astral realms, they're not necessarily heaven or hell. It's kind of like here. I mean, you can call this hell, you can call it a prison, you can also call it a paradise. So this is important to understand, and we're going to definitely go into this more. And please check out some of the other videos on my channel here that help explain this as well, because I've been explaining this for about 2 years now, since I read some of these books and got this information, and then just putting things together. It all kind of to my channel. Here's another lesson on occult science, esoteric knowledge. A lot of the information nowadays has been definitely coming out a lot more quickly than it was in 2012, and now people are starting to pick up on the ancient spiritual sciences that are the roots of all mythologies, religions, and paths. And today we're going to be discussing as above, so below, and how the goal of the entire cosmos is for, or the Creator's plan is for each individual, male and female, soul to attain self-conscious immortality. Now, Jesus says, with patience you will possess your soul. Now, what does this mean? We were told that we already are a soul. We are a soul. We are a seed of a soul. Our monad, or our inner being, comes from the highest abodes, the most celestial, most subtle dynamics. And then when it's differentiated by angelic spiritual parents, male and female, mother and wisdom, then its goal is to take down the vortex, down all the kingdoms from the highest realms of the ether, vapor, energetic realms, water, earth. Now, earth being the physical realm, this realm being the only realm that we are physically capable to be in a material body of low velocity. Hence, we experience time going by slow. We experience a sense of mundanity to life. We hear, that the world is a place where a lot of our survival instincts are tested and learn how to respond to certain situations. But in each realm, the laws and velocities change. So when the soul from its highest point, more subtlest realm, comes into contact with low velocity or its negative counterpart, matter, it becomes entombed or crucified on a cross. So this death of the soul is actually, we are in the realm of the dead. So watch the first video I posted on this channel, and I explain how this is as far as you can go into death, being in the physical realm. So humans are actually the walking dead. Reason being is because they are the tomb that the inner Christ soul resurrects from and gains conscious immortality. But in order to do that, if we follow the alchemical formulas of the Judeo-Christian Bible, you have to go through these elements, because these elements are the sheaths or the functionalities of the deity, and they manifest in the same way, like our north, west, east, and south manifest the four cardinal directions. So spirit manifests, or the highest abode manifests the four elements: earth, air, water, fire, air, ether. And when we go to physical incarnation, and we go up from the highest, down from the highest forms, down to the mineral, plant, animal, and ethereal dimensions, we can talk about that more later, and then descending down into material incarnation, where in the rock kingdom, or mineral, also manifesting as gnomes, they experience the life of being solidified, more of a slumbered state. Then plants have a more higher consciousness, a more sense of feeling. In the animal kingdom, you learn instinct as well as love. And then in the human kingdom, you learn self-conscious love, self-conscious immortality, because then you understand exactly where you're going. Because from when you were differentiated from the Supreme, or from God, by the two wisdom and love angelic parents of your specific monad, then you were differentiated as an Adam and Eve, but before Eve was split. Once the soul was split, it descends. That physical body is thought of as a tomb, because in the higher ethereal realms, life and activity and even personality is so unlimited that the physical body coming into contact with the physical realm puts a stop to that, and all things come to a stop. That stop, the entropy, is earth. And we're encapsulated by a physical body. As you can see, the physical body contains the waters of life. So this liquid soul within the earth body has to be transmuted through the inner fire and light into gaseous spirit, so that we can ascend and attain the upright pentagram. The upright pentagram being the ability that man has finally conquered self-conscious immortality and has attained self-conscious while in the physical realm. Because most people do not attain to this until the higher astral planes, and then even the celestial. Man has one chance since being incarnated into the lower forms of life, of earth, mineral, gnomes, sylphs, udines, lower elemental spirits, and now possesses self-conscious reason and the ability to self-reflect on himself. This self-consciousness, this inner seed, is the fire within, which is the inner part of us that's the sun on the outer side. As within, so without. The sun that we see in the sky is the outer symbol of this inner soul that evaporates the waters in our body. The waters in our body are our soul, and we must transmute it into spirit. Hence, John the Baptist says, the one that comes after I is more worthy is not worthy to unbuckle my sandals, i.e. Pisces sandals being the feet. He says, the one that comes after me, I baptize you with water, but the one that comes after me baptizes you with fire and the Holy Spirit. Because we need to ascend from the earth to the water, to the fire, to the air. And this is a very patient alchemical process. And life, based on your thought atoms and your thought vibrations and your feelings and emotions and your actions, you attract the circumstances that help this process take place, with the end result being the solar body, or the self-conscious immortality in the higher realms beyond the 7 astral planes. Once you're a physical human, you have had enough experience to transcend into the astral planes, but in the astral planes are still not perfect realms. They still have suffering, pleasure, pain, and they're still physical realms. It's just that they have higher velocities and there's less laws. For example, density doesn't apply there, hence you can float, teleport, transport. Here you have to wait for the bus. Here you have to drive to work. So in the astral plane, things are a bit different. And we're conscious of this because we can experiment with this ever since we were able to remember our first dream. So the spirit is always in a conscious creating mode. It's always creating these fields. The Purusha is the conscious, the witness, and it's always creating these separate fields. And it's always given circumstances to overcome entropy. So who is this frustrated looking figure here below the earth? That is the black satellite, which is the no to the yes of the sun. The sun says yes, the darkness says no. Entropy serves a purpose, because if that disintegration principle didn't happen, nature would not be able to recycle energy. And if humans didn't have free will to either strive to the highest points and they choose consciously to go downward, then the nature has a way to recycle them so that they are able to be renewed. But all humans have an opportunity to overcome the cross of the physical body and transcend into the higher realms with the solar body and living in peace and bliss. Notice how I put the entropy, then the physical plane earth, then we have the water, then we have the sun outside that vaporizes the water upward, north, towards the head. The head is ruled by Aries, or Rama, the fire. And the ancients believed that the earth was created when all the planets were in conjunction in Aries, because Aries is the creative, pioneering spirit. It is the I am consciousness, whereas Taurus is I have. Gemini is I think. So this is how consciousness transforms itself on the way down. And this is how consciousness also transforms itself on the way up. Energy is always in a constant process of transformation. And we have to ignite the inner fire, which is the Christ, to evaporate the waters of the soul to be saved from the earth tomb, which is also a womb, because the mysteries of Isis are is that each human body is a womb in and of itself, because this is the first time you've ever had self-consciousness. This is the first time you've ever had a human mind. Man is glory. Animals are love. Humans are glory. And then we attain to the higher velocities. Similar to the worm, doesn't understand the phase of cocoon, and by the time it's out of the cocoon, it finally understands. It looks at its last previous state as a worm and is able to appreciate the wings much more. Hence, man will once again gain his metaphorical, metaphysical wings in the higher velocity realms and be able to attain conscious self-mortality with using those virtues of patience, love, and wisdom, and igniting the inner fire through the powers of chastity, self-reflection, self-remembering, and having a devotional attitude to the most highest ideals that the human mind has been able to comprehend. Once that takes place, the soul is then able to consciously live on the higher planes, and even work never ends, because then your mission will be to assist those in the lower. One will never go, a true bodhisattva will never attain to the highest, or if they attain to the highest, they will always continue to dial down to the lower planes to liberate souls. Hence also the allegory of Christ going down into the underworld and liberating souls, or the denzians of the lower manifestations of the lower realms. See, Earth is not the lowest you could go. There are sub-pockets. Now, souls were just supposed to come here to gain conscious self-conscious immortality, but because everything has free will and everything has a personality and everything has consciousness, there has been Denzians and negative entities that utilize the upper realms, i.e. us, because we're above those lower realms. And their idea is to, if they can conflict us or lower our energies or obstruct our free will, they can get into us and actually live vicariously through us. So this is why we always have to stay upright with the upright pentagram. The compass always points north, to always stay happy, to keep the clouds clear, to keep the mind in the spirit, and to keep the holy fire lit, or the inner lantern. And then you become an initiate of the flame, and you hold that cosmic wisdom, that eternal wisdom, and are able to orally transmit it to others and allow them to understand the mysteries of their being and know that life never ends. It's a sense of conscious, self-conscious, immortal progression, and nature doesn't like stagnation. Hello, welcome to your syncretism class. Today we're going to be learning about how the soul descended from the monad into the sine wave, how our soul emanated from the masculine feminine monad and descended, differentiated, and descended into the sine wave, which gives us our entire spectrum of this experience. Essentially, when we physically incarnated, the secret key to the scriptures is to know that when we physically incarnated, that was actually considered death to the soul, because we came from our unlimited nature in the causal plane, in which we were already individual entities. And the death of the soul is the incarnation. And this is considered the land of dead. So essentially, we come from the monad, which is the masculine, feminine, unified black light, which then projects itself into the sine wave. And we essentially descend from this and emanate. We each have our own individual father, mother, monad. And then we have our dyad, which gives us our experience as an individual. Essentially, this is the reason why we descend here, is to know the difference between good and evil, and the knowledge between what we are as opposed to what we are not, because it's up to each individual soul to self-realize. When we fall and descend from the monad, the father, mother, monad, and descend into physical incarnation, we pick up from the 7 planets, 7 virtues, 7 qualities, 7 powers, but as well as 7 vices, and things that basically condition the soul. So essentially, the work of each human soul is to work out these 7. And to model the sine wave, you can't escape it, because it's stamped in the unconscious mind of the creator. Essentially, Walter Russell says, the secret of creation is in the wave. This is how light manifests, redshift, blue shift. Essentially, we experience birth, maturity, decline, old age, and finally resurrection. And this resurrection here is when we finally regain our consciousness outside of the fixed tomb. Because here we are in fixed earth. We have become fixed in matter, or what we'd say nailed to the cross. We've been crucified onto matter. So the secret key is that the death means physical incarnation. According to Alvin Boyd Kuhn, he has referenced many of the ancients who knew that secret to the operas, the ancient texts, as well as some of the ancient scriptures. Knowing exactly that key will help you realize that, hey, death isn't so bad at all. It's actually our portal to life. And he makes some kind of a casual joke where he explains that who would have thought that, the farthest thing that death, the soul could experience of death was to incarnate into physical realm. So essentially, Mystery Taylor wrote, is someone who Alvin Boyd Kuhn is quoting, Mysteries Taylor. He writes that the Greeks believed that the human souls were confined in the body as in a prison, a condition which was denominated
which was denominated Genesis or generation. Let's read that again. Mysteries Taylor writes that the Greeks believed that the human souls were confined in the body as in a prison, a condition which was denominated Genesis or generation, from which Dionysus would liberate them. So as the story goes, the human body is like a shelter or a tomb for the soul that we descend into. It's figurative. It's not that it's gloomy and bad. It's just that, figuratively speaking, this life is death compared to the soul life that we had in the causal plane. So essentially, if we work out our 7 planets that we've been stamped with energetically, and we understand these 12 and how the sine wave relates to our life, we will be able to basically become alchemists and transmute this material realm into the spiritual realm through alchemy, through transmutation. Essentially, this metaphor has been used in a lot of ancient seers have noticed how water becomes ice, and that ice has to become liquid, and that liquid becomes vapor. Those vapor become clouds, and then the clouds produce lightning and thunder. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says that one way to relate to him is thunder, fragrance of the earth, or the thunder and lightning. That energy that's produced is the prime creator. Essentially, we need to transmute our ice cubes into water, the water into vapor, the vapor will become clouds, and essentially those clouds produce that spiritual energy, that effulgence. This is a metaphor for our bodies and our spiritual evolution as we descend into a dense form and we transmute ourselves up the ladder back into the supernal realms that are not dense. So essentially, Alan Boyd Kuhn goes on to state that Plato himself said that men are placed in the body as in a prison. He even considered the body as the shelter of the soul, an idea that carried one step farther the ancient Egyptians' representation of the body, personalizing the goddess Hathor as the birdcage of the soul. This imprisonment was equated with the idea of death to the soul, is clearly expressed by Marco Taylor, who, in commenting on the writings of Mark Albius, writes, "The soul in the present life may be said to die as far as it is possible for a soul to die, occultly intimating that the death of the soul was nothing more than a profound union with the ruinous bounds of the body." So, hearing this in syncretism, we learn how to liberate the soul from the body. Not that we're not hating on the material realm. The material realm is actually a school and a play. Well, I would say it's like an academy for souls. It's like soul academy. It's a universal academy to learn experiences, to know what we are as opposed to what we're not. So essentially, it's good to know that our eternal real abode is in an eternal realm where we're unlimited in capacity and that we're here to gain something. So this is not for no reason. A lot of people are pushing in this age nihilistic beliefs that there's no purpose in life, that this is all just for no reason at all. So essentially, we can learn how to utilize these 7 forces of the creator and activate them within the body, transmuting the vices into virtues one by one or all at once. Essentially, throughout our lives, we're given trial and error. Things are good, and then we experience the lows, and the rhythm brings us back to the highs. These trials and errors are basically the wilderness. The ancient scriptures talk about the wilderness. We are in the wilderness, learning, experiencing, trying to overcome trial and error so that we can become acquainted with ourselves. So essentially, let's take a look into George W. Carey, what he had to say. There we go. Essentially, the creator created a workshop, and the workshop is the sine wave and our descent into the material realm, so that we can have an experience, so that we can gain individuality and take this back with us. So essentially, George W. Carey goes on to say, we are all the operators or workmen in the divine workshop, and the divine intelligence, or the central it, made no mistake in placing any of us here, but does insist that we recognize that now is the time, and here is the place to do our best. So essentially, the creator has manifested this material realm and has allowed us to work on ourselves as the divine project to finally become self-conscious and self-cognizant. Before we descended into the sine wave, we weren't cognizant of who exactly we were. We were just bliss, entities in bliss, Sat Chit Ananda, bliss, consciousness, existence. But we didn't have knowledge of ourselves or where we came from. We had to descend into the realm of the tomb, into the land of the dead, and completely forget ourselves. We actually merge with a creature. We will talk about how we descend into an actual formed creature that we associate with and is our soul counterpart until we move on and take it with us and be able to retain that entity, so that we can don't have to lose what we worked on. We've been working so hard. So essentially, we will be in my classes, as we go about, we will be learning how to manifest these 7 forces within the body, and how to work on them alchemically at different seasons and different times. The reason being is because, since the soul is entombed in the matter, and we are in a realm of sleep and forgetfulness, our goal is to awaken consciousness, transmute our energy, and become self-illuminated, so that we are able to navigate our way back with full cognizance of our experience. So essentially, we need to practice daily methods that will help us awaken our consciousness from moment to moment. The things of this age that are helping people wake up the most and experience the eternal realm are things like chanting, as well as self-observation. So these are 2 ways. From day to day, you could practice the mantra Om, AUM, and do it internally throughout the day. So when you're doing work, when you're doing the dishes, when you are going outside for a walk, on your way to work, while you're at work, try to make sure that throughout the day, for at least a good amount of time, that you are using this mantra Om and actually utilizing it. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he is the syllable Om. If we utilize this symbol, we are utilizing the intelligence of Krishna. And that Krishna is the monad. That monad is the highest intelligence. That is the prime cause. So essentially, we can merge with this and experience difference, separation, while being merged in union at the same time. So in union, but separate. Essentially, self-observation and the mantra Om, used as an actual practice on a daily, weekly basis, will help you awaken the consciousness and essentially experience a self-auto realization. So at first, when you do the mantra Om, it's going to feel a little bit numb, a little bit barren, but as you develop the practice, you'll be able to actually hear yourself Om. You'll catch a glimpse of the person that actually is observing the person that's saying Om. Om. So by working with this mantra on a day-to-day basis, we can actually be able to use it as an anchor, to anchor our consciousness in the present moment, to awaken it, so that we can begin to come out of this tomb, because we're enveloped in the 4 elements, and being encased in this tomb that we call life, which is actually death to the soul, makes it so that our consciousness is enveloped by matter and elements, and it is very apt to delusion, confusion, lust for material senses. So we need to use sound and mantra, especially Om, on a day-to-day basis internally, as we are going to the store, as we're doing our errands, before we're completing our duties. And if we make this a practice for at least a couple of weeks, we can then begin to experience profound states of awakening, so that we can actually cognitize, realize that we are a soul, light, trapped. I wouldn't say trapped, but are currently living in a body, essentially. So this is one technique that's going to help you if you do it on a weekly basis and actually use the mantra Om, not only when you meditate for an hour or half an hour in the mornings or evenings, but throughout your entire routine throughout the day. Essentially, this is going to be a very good practice to start the process of awakening from this self-through of the soul. And essentially, when you're doing the mantra Om, you're pulling yourself out of this dualistic red shift, blue shift, and you're actually merging or witnessing from this standpoint. So this is where you want to live here, so that you can have full recognition of all 12 of the intelligences that are within you and how they're working and operating. So essentially, the mantra Om is going to be the first practice that we delve into to awaken consciousness from the self-through of the soul. It's just going to be an esoteric practice done completely in head, invisible from anyone outside, simply Om inaudibly, so you don't have to use your mouth. So essentially, when the soul descended through the planets and gained the 7 forces, we acquire a zodiac. And now our mission is to fill out our ability to learn from our lessons of life here, and to activate our inner talents and gifts, and finally merge from the tomb resurrected. This is the mysteries of the sun, the mysteries of the scriptures, so that you can understand that in the same way that the solar orb in the sky gives birth to itself, does its duties through sacrifice and trial, and then has its crucifixion, death, and then finally the resurrection. This is essentially the template or blueprint for our souls on our initiatory developmental journey through this wilderness. So essentially, through syncretism and understanding the Sambest model, and how we will be going over and corresponding to the 7 planets, as well as the 12 intelligences, and how to activate these according to raising the chrism, activating them through mantras, through self-observation, we can come to a point where we finally awaken, and we no longer are perturbed and rattled by this material nature that the soul is so much attracted to. So essentially, this will be the information that can help you gain control over your mind if it's completely at a point in initiation. It could be really hard to say, hey, I'm going to take up a discipline when our minds are scattered and are unable to focus, are unable to awaken. We slip into fantasy or daydreams throughout the day, every day. And through this mantra Om and self-observation from moment to moment, by watching ourselves, we can slowly pull ourselves out of this, so that day by day, we begin to experience a continuation of consciousness. And this continuation of consciousness, which is this part of the sine wave, because it's not infiltrated by red shift and blue shift, which is thinking, this is knowing. And once we become knowing, we are able to take control over this body, dominate our 4 elements with our spirit, and essentially bring what George W. Carey was trying to explain, that now is the time for perfection. That if we can live a perfect day, we can live a perfect week, and that perfect week can transpire to a perfect month. And that perfect month will allow our bodies to transmute and activate and embody more soul energy. There's very possible that your body's here, but it's not embodying your entire soul or individual conscious self. Essentially, these practices help you embody that, because you can go on your whole day completely automated automaton, with daydreams, no regards, and just reacting to your environment. But using these techniques and understanding the sine wave and how it relates to your life, it will actually able to pull you out of this routine. So essentially, let's see. Every so-called thing, whether it be animal, vegetable, or mineral, molecule or atom, ion or electron, is the result of the one, intelligence, expressing itself in different rates of motion. Then what is spirit? Spirit is the breath of life. Spirit is that which is breathed into man, must be intelligence, or man would not be intelligent. Non-intelligent substance, which is of course unthinkable, would not breathe into anything, nor make it intelligent if it did. Therefore, we see that the spirit, intelligence, and matter are one and the same essay in different rates of motion. So essentially, the creator is full of intelligence. It's not impersonal in the fact that everything has intelligence, even this material realm. But the one that resides outside of the material realm is fully conscious of what it did when it created each one of us. And each one of us has an exact purpose that we can incarnate and actually develop if we were to just allow the process to happen. However, because we're in the material modes of nature, we get in the way of ourselves and disrupt this process. And this is why we can actually fail in becoming our highest talent, our highest compassion, our highest love, our highest state of giving. You know, we can become greedy. We can become enveloped in lust. We can completely forget who we are. And these are remedies that are going to help so that doesn't happen and we can take control. So essentially, what we need, a couple of points that we need to understand is that the sine wave emanates from the causal plane. The monad, which is the one unified male and female combined living personal conscious causal entity or being, and emanates the dyad. And we as individual emanations of that have our origin in the primum mobile, which is eternity. We descend the 7 planets into matter, and our being becomes entangled in the material counterpart of its divine, subtle essence of light. The soul loves matter. It is attracted to this realm, and we become conscious of the dyad. Through this duality, we become conscious of the monad. This is our ability to self-awaken. Life is full of meaning and purpose. It is not a nihilistic universe where we just come here randomly, have no purpose to fulfill, and we're simply tossed from event to event with no recollection, right? It's not what you gain here in the material realm, but the invisible inherent qualities that you gain as you ascend. Good and evil, now that we bit the apple, biting the apple refers to physical incarnation. When the soul incarnates into matter on one level, that means the soul is actually incarnating into the material realm of good and evil. So essentially, now that we have bit the apple of physical incarnation, we have the opportunity to rise back up with full cognizance of now who we are and who we are not. So we can take opportunity on a day-to-day basis to understand what this world is bringing us a lot of things right now that are very disturbing. And this is going to help us wake us up to understand what we are not, because we can only understand through its opposite. So essentially, we can transmute and become alchemists and take these negative experiences that happen to us and use them as a reflection to understand that it is going to show us who we are not, so we understand who we are. And then that is when we have to take action, once we have full cognizance of that. So when we descend from the monad, we actually descend into the sine wave, which is the mind of the creator. We descend into the mind of God. The place that we live is a realm. It's a total realm. It's not a specific place or dot. It is a realm. And we are realm dwellers. We are physical realm dwellers, and we have a part of us that is actually unmanifested as well. But the part of us that's physical, we're dwelling in a physical realm. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that there was never a time where you or I did not exist. So essentially, as eternal individual conscious entities that descend from the monad, when we were in the monad, we had complete unification. We were one. We had our separate individual existence by default. The creator or the eternal prime cause is eternal. It never had a beginning or end. Just by its simple being of the one, it formed the many, and we are the many. So essentially, when he says that, there's never a time where we didn't exist, there's never a time where we didn't exist, but now we exist with cognizance and consciousness because we've descended into the sine wave and understood the 12 holy perspectives of the sun and the witness, so that we can understand ourselves and actually know. Because before that, we were part of the one, part of the causal effulgence with no beginning or end. So essentially, we had no reference point. So essentially, each one of us has been eternal, and our birth in eternity in counter space, the invisible realm, that is our appearance in here. So like when our spirit souls give us birth, they take us from the monad realm, take us out into the spirit, and we descend and become into the physical encasements. So boom, we're kind of like we have like two parents. We have a spirit, we're eternal in the monad, and then when we form and create like our personality soul, or from our spiritual counterparts, our divine personal Krishna and Radha, or Jesus and Mary Magdalene, this forms an entity. And now that entity is born, first birth, and the second birth, boom, death, it dies, descends into the material realm. I know it's confusing, right? Because death is this life and life is the life hereafter, because this is actually the death of the soul. So essentially, we appear here in the material realm as conscious entities. We wake up for 16 hours a day, and we're responsible to operate this elemental entity. And when it's not in operation, we merge back into counter space. So our conscious souls, like sparks from a flame, descend to know each individual self as a separate or form from the direct emanation of the first cause. Each soul manifesting in the world of dualities takes on the work of transmutation, allowing the consciousness to manifest as stable earth. So essentially, we take this unlimited entity and we bulk it down into like a cross or a fitting or a material tomb. We become earth. And from that earth, we have a mind, body, personality, which are counterparts of the material realm. The witness and the being are kind of out here. And then we have our encasement that kind of hovers around it. We're separate from it. So essentially, based on the two eternal number archetypes, the soul individual is put through experience to go back up the spheres while blossoming the qualities of the soul and transmuting the 7 vices into virtues in order for it to know what it is. The goal is to know ourselves. So through these alchemical practices of observing ourselves moment to moment, working on transmuting our vice into virtues every day, we are able to take control over what's uncontrollable. Our physical natural impulses are always taking us here and there. They seem to be automatic. So we have to take what is not automatic, what is fixed and eternal, and use it to navigate and spiritualize what is not fixed, what is mutable and uneternal, which is this material realm. Like George W. Carey said, this is God. This is the creator's workshop, and we're the workmen. The process that nature intended is very spiritual, and it is supposed to take place very naturally on its own. It's trying to make it so that our individual selves in matter of this tomb auto-realize, understand where it came from, crystallize its consciousness and experiences, and return to the eternal realm with unlimited consciousness. So essentially, on one level, the holy books or the sun books explain the various levels of initiation in the life of the soul. So when the Bible or these holy books are talking about like physical creation or creation of the material realm, on one level it's talking about that, but on another level it's actually talking about creation of the spiritual realm, of the spiritual monad counter space realm, or the emanation of that before this material creation was formed. So essentially on one level, the Bible's talking about the various layers of life. On one level, it's the body. The next level, it's the celestials and the solar, the planets and the sun. And it's also talking about creation before the creation, the spiritual birth of the soul. So that descent of the soul into the tomb or the womb, like Alvin Boyd Kuhn explains, is basically our heroic journey of conquering death. So we have nothing to fear, guys. Through transmutation, we are given the gift of life and are able to do the great work. So our lives and our heroic stories are all based on the ecliptic and the sine wave. Everything is the same holographically because we are literally part of the first cause. There's a part of you that is unmanifested and resides in the invisible realm. So there's a part of us that's actually living in counter space right now. When you do the mantra Om on a weekly basis and day-to-day basis, identify with the part of you that is not manifested in the physical body. This part of you is the part of you that is not associated or affiliated or is harmed or has any turbulence or trouble from being encased in the material realm. If we can activate this, exercise it, practice Om on a day-to-day basis while being cognizant of ourselves, we can activate this and then begin to identify with it. That's how we move from the consciousness of earth to water. And we start identifying with soul. In the Greek stages of consciousness, we go from earth, water, air, to fire. From the most dense to the most subtle. So let's take advantage of this practice so that we can definitely kickstart the alchemical process and begin to awaken from this. Essentially, there is your mental body that connects you to your physical self. So we know about the unmanifested part of you that resides in the monad. And then you have the manifested part of you that's manifested in the dyad. Essentially, this is where the physical shell or the lower ego resides. The lower ego or personality is basically an anchor for the soul. And it's the player game. It's the game. It's the character in the matrix, right? It's the character of the matrix, whereas you are the player. The monad is the player of the game. The player of the game's never inside the game. It's always the character and the player are separate. So essentially, at this plane is the mid garden. So the plane that we live in the physical realm is the mid garden. It's in between here, the heavens, and the lower realms. Heavens, mid garden, lower realms. So essentially, this plane is where we acquire the seven forces or planets or archangels. The seven planets are the archangels, and these are the qualities that we are gifted with on our journey. And then finally, we have the 12 zodiac or the 12 intelligences, which give us our ability to essentially operate with purpose and existence. You know, each zodiac sign from Aries to Pisces has its own perspective, its own way of practicing yoga, its own way of practicing the holy sciences, or even having different trials in life. So essentially, this is the purpose of creation, to give us a reference point of who we are as opposed to who we're not, so that we could finally go back with full cognizance. So essentially, this is going to be part one lesson. And the next thing that we're going to be going into is basically the 12, how these relate to the Christian scriptures, to the 12 apostles, and how each of the apostles relates to a different aspect or quality of consciousness, and how you can develop these powers one by one throughout the year. So throughout your life, one by one, month by month, there's 12 archetypes, 12 months, working on one a month throughout the years will develop beautiful qualities in the soul, especially if you're conscious of it, right? Because this happens on an unconscious level, but it's, you know, slow. When you're at a good mature age of soul development, you can be aware of what the creator is up to, and you can see these patterns and then go along with it and be like, okay, hop on board. But if you're not cognizant of it, it kind of, things just happen, you think they're random. So nothing's random ever. So we'll be learning about the 12 spiritual powers and how to incarnate those, how to develop those. I'll also be going over some more practices, and I hope you guys enjoyed this class, and be looking forward to going over the next steps with you guys. If you have any questions, please follow the ways to post those, and I'll be glad to help. Thank you so much. Have a good one.